Good morning, Valley in Camarillo, California, and it's wonderful to be with you today. And we are ongoing this week with our meditations from spiritual people who have inspired me with their spiritual practices. And so we are looking at Rumi this week, and he had four disciplines that he followed. One was eating lightly, the other one was moving freely, deeply breathing, and looking raptly at things. Those are the four disciplines. So I'm going to go on with the one about fasting. And so we're going to relax in first, and then I'll be telling you a little bit about his ideas. And I want to do the disclaimer right now up front. I'm not recommending anyone fast. I'm just talking about Rumi and where he found ecstasy in these four disciplines and how he felt closer to the source itself, to Spirit Divine, by following these four disciplines. And by the way, Rumi never wrote a word. He was the 13th century Sufi mystic poet that has inspired so many of us with his recognition of the oneness in and through all life. But he never wrote. He had scribes. Were so enchanted by him once he became more enlightened, and they followed him around with pen and paper and wrote them all down. And then people, in an effort to capture all that he meant and the wisdom that he had, they did was eventually put it into 23 volumes. And many scholars feel that if they had been left in the order that they were scribed, there would have been more continuity in this thinking. So as we begin, we're going to relax in, and I'll tell you exactly. We're sticking with eating lightly and what Rumi, where he came from, why he said that, and how we connected. So now, just going into that place of, oh, just relax the body in. Be aware of the breath. Feel the light coming down, down, down from the center of the crown, all the way down, down, down. Relaxing in. Relaxing in your chair or your bed, wherever you are. Just relaxing in. And just going all the way down that light, going down, down, down the crown, going down the back. And when you get to your neck, actually, let's go down and relax the forehead first, too, in that light. And I always say, let go of the bacon row, the rows of lines from worry many times, or thinking. And just relax that in, and then going down and relaxing the jaw. Let the jaw just go slack-jawed. Just relaxing in. And then having that light go down, down, down the neck, and then down to the back. And your shoulders, and just let your head drop, your back. Just relax in and lower it and stretch it. There's no need to watch your back in this. Just to relax it in, let go. And that energy going down from the shoulders, down from the upper arms, down the elbows, down the lower arms and the wrists and out the hands. Sometimes you can even feel the energy of what I call these energy wands, because we're directing our energy in these meditations. And so during the meditation, if there's a part of the body that you feel needs special attention, just take those energy wands and direct the energy there for those healing effects, that intense energetic presence going into that area. And so now that energy going down the back, wrapping around the front, into the lotus, into the heart of the lotus. And from the heart of the lotus, going back down into the solar plexus just below the heart chakra, going down the back, vertebrae by vertebrae by vertebrae. And then coming back around into the wonderful sacral chakra below the belly button. above the root chakra, beneath the legs, and the sit bone. And just relaxing in, and then going down, down, down the back, vertebrae by vertebrae by vertebrae, and opening up the root chakra between the legs. Then whatever position you're in, just have that energy going down the thighs, down the knees that work so hard to support us every single day and do so much for us. And going down the knees, down the calves, down the ankles. Down the feet and down into that middle ground. And anchoring us there, in that middle ground. And then feel that energy just coming right back in. And we're going to breathe that energy in, coming up the body with God is on the in-breath, and I am on the out-breath, just connecting us to Spirit Divine. And God is, silently, I am. And as you breathe in this God is, silently just hold it there. Fill your lungs as much as you can. And then I am with a breath out of the mouth. And as I begin to tell you more about Rumi and more about his fasting discipline, and again, making sure you know we are not promoting any kind of fasting exercise. But just what made Rumi Rumi and the history of fasting as well. So Rumi's true greatest desire was to see into spirituality, be one with spirituality. And he grew up in a strict religion, Muslim. And he learned that to truly grow into one soul, there are 4 things, as I mentioned before, you have to surrender to. But the greatest one of all of those is love. You have to dissolve yourself into the love of God that lies within you until the love is totally contained within you. So you literally become the eyes, the heart, the mind, the sight, the beingness of God's love on this planet. And there's some stanzas from one poem of his that was, "O lovers, take off the garment of self-consciousness and melt into yourself while gazing at the face of immortality." And so we're looking at the first discipline of which he wrote about and was put into one of those volumes. And it's eating lightly. And we're going to weave it into meditation today as a tool to connect you with the great beyond within. And in his poetry, it reveals the great role that food from the self, for the self, plays in the range of who we are, how it enhances our taste, smells, and flavors, and how sharing it with others and working together to make it with others transforms the signals of hunger and gives us great pleasure. And then after the food is made, sharing it and gathering together infuses us with the great pleasure of being together. So yes, we know how much joy food gives us, one of our greatest pleasures, but it also gives us problems in the cultures of scarcity There's never enough, and in the cultures of abundance, there's often too much, as we are aware of. Too much can be just as problematic as too much. Too little, I'm sorry. And when we go all the way back and we trace our ancestry's evolution, we find that the food that was right in front of them that they found, the berries and the nuts, and those food gatherers, as they discovered them, they were really certain that that day, right then and there, was their golden opportunity to feed their bodies. So they ate as much food as possible. When they came across it, when it was laid in front of them, because they didn't know if tomorrow they would have any at all. Today, radical circumstances have changed how we are. And yet, fundamentally, when we're in a culture of too much, we still come from that eat as much as you can, because it might not be there tomorrow. There is that one soul that still comes up and has us recognize it. And we know how much pleasure comes from the sweetness of chocolate in our mouth, or something else like a fruit. But Rumi felt there was greater pleasure to be found, more ecstasy to be found, true spiritual pleasure to be found in feeding the soul. And when you fast, he believed, you go straight to the soul, and there is no bypass or anything else that food and going straight to pleasure of the food supports. The oneness and connection of the soul arises through fasting, according to Rumi's poems. And there's a story about a youth, a young man, in service to a great king, who was very unhappy with the amount of food being given to him by the cook. And so he scolded the cook about his stinginess of the food that was given to his master, the king. And he said, you know, you dishonor our master. And the youth who was making the food, who was taking the food to the king, did not want to listen to the cook's excuses. So he became angry and wrote the cook off. And he wrote an angry letter about how he felt, how this cook was depriving the king of food. And there was such anger in the note that the king saw the angry spirit that was written into the letter, and how the letter only became complaints about food and drink, and how the young man serving the king had no aspirations to find the spiritual food that lies within. So he didn't want to feed that anger, and he ignored that letter and many other letters that the young man wrote him, telling him how mean it was about the cook. And the king knew the proper answer into these letters to that young man that was so angry is silence. So he gave no answers to all of the letters. And then the young man that was serving the king, then he began to blame not only the cook, but he began to do the messenger, ignoring the fact, the messenger giving the letters, but he was ignoring the fact that the folly of his own letter was the real reason for having all of the letters and all of the attention gone unanswered. And he said that the young man was a fool, for he only regarded the materiality of food and meat and berries and drink, whereas the food of a wise man is the light of fasting that is received when you are connected to the food of God. Connected to the oneness means the spiritual food is being obtained in its purest form. So what we know about fasting is a lot. We know that it is part of many, many religions. It was part of many, many philosophies, including not only Jesus and Muhammad and Gandhi and healers that also fasted, but we know that the healers like Hippocrates and Geagan sincerely believed that fasting was the cure for physical illness many times. There were also those philosophers like Plato and Socrates and the students that became their followers and who formed their academy. They used fasting to increase mental clarity and enhance physical functioning. And then there are those festivals of which Rumi would have been part of, like Ramadan, or is the fasting for the day. And the fasting was to connect with the inside to help bring out the shining light. The Zulus say that continually a stuffed body doesn't see the secret things. And Rumi tells us that fasting provides the kind of food that helps to see the mysteries of the secret things in a way that food of the table does not. And he would ask periodically, and you can ask your own self these questions. Is a pleasure of a well-fed belly not for me? Or do I want to take times away from food to create the ecstasy that really speaks to me in such a greater way of being at pleasure with the One? And again, there are so many ways to fast. There are so many ways to diet. There are so many ways to follow an eating plan. And I am not suggesting any one of these or suggesting you fast. I just am suggesting and sharing that Rumi, one of his greatest 4 disciplines, spiritual disciplines, was eating lightly. So I'm ending with a couple of his poems, and I'll end with affirmations too. Drink the wine of eternity. Give up eating and drinking. Instead, be full without food. At times we eat because we recognize that the sun and the moon are giving us that sign. And when we are out and we see the sun and the moon and the clouds, it is love. It goes down well and gives pleasure to my mouth, eating, drinking, and a warm loaf of bread. Create cold people. Joy, ecstasy, and radiance are the food of lovers. The month of fasting has become upon us. So let us not talk about the bowl or jar. From now on, let's enjoy the picture of eternity and get drunk off of that picture. When fasting, you're the greatest guest of God. And you are served the meal of heaven as you shut the door of hell. The month of fasting, thousands of heaven gates spring open into that oneness. And so here are a few affirmations to suggest how you can eat lightly and be more in connection with the divine soul. And as I stay in the I am, please personalize these words. I am eating by listening to my body on its deepest level. listening to my body, and I eat when necessary to ensure the health and well-being of my body. Before I eat, I am honoring the food that is going in, eating lightly. I enjoy how fasting makes me feel physically, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. I am preparing my eating plan that supports my health, my well-being, and I write it down, and I follow it, and I am not giving it any joy at all. I am releasing that which no longer serves me in that material world of food, and embracing the greater joy of the God within. So I meditate even just for a moment before I eat. And as I eat, I am eating the foods that support my body, not overeating. I am going back to some of the practices, when possible, of my fellow spiritual seekers. Following their own spiritual practices. And I realized that the sages throughout the ages, throughout all religions, that fasting and lightly eating became part of their everyday spiritual practices and yearly retreats into the self. From the Muslims honoring Ramadan, the Jews refraining from eating over Yom Kippur, Christians observing Lent, Native Americans fasting as part of their vision quest, Hindus and Buddhists each honoring special days in religious calendars. By releasing food and going straight to Spirit Divine. And so I listen to my body, I create my own eating plan, I create my own pathway to being spiritually connected to the One, the One, the One. And during the day, in the morning I meditate, opening up to that wonderful, loving Spirit Divine. In the afternoon, when I am hungry or when I'm even thinking about food or anything just before I eat. I meditate and give great thanks for being awake, aware, alert. And I am committed to dissolving myself into God every day in every way, looking for new paths, new information, new beingness, not the words, but the feelingness from the heart until the love contained within me thinks, feels, sees, and is that love of God. And so now as we come back and we open up, we feel our feet and our bodies in our beds or chairs or wherever we are, hearing my voice. And my joy of sharing with you. And I just say namaste, peace out, have a blessed day. I'll see you tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll be looking at Rumi's breathing deeply meditative state to obtain that bliss, that heavenly bliss. Mwah! I love each and every one of you. I'll see you on the flip side. Have a blessed day.